This is a better live-action Lion King than the actual live-action Lion King.
Let's have some fun.
The revolution will be live.
Black Panther was the cultural phenomenon about the hero of the same name following his debut in Captain America: Civil War. My hair is a mess today, isn't it? Now, this movie was an absolute beast. It killed it at the box office. Not as much as the movie we're going to talk about next week, but it still killed it nonetheless. And it made history as the second ever superhero film to get a Best Picture nomination, right behind The Dark Knight. In this film, Prince T'Challa, played wonderfully by Chadwick Boseman, returns to his home country of Wakanda to be crowned king due to the fact that his father and former king, T'Chaka, was killed by Zemo in Captain America: Civil War. Chadwick Boseman was absolutely fantastic in this role, and it is hard to see anyone ever being able to replace him. I'm not going to get into the controversy on whether or not they should have replaced him or not for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. This video is not about that, so I'm not going to get into it. We all have our thoughts. I have my thoughts. I don't need to address those in this video, but point being, he played this character so well that it's hard to see someone else being able to do it. Chadwick Boseman plays T'Challa brilliantly in every MCU movie he appears in, but since this is his standalone film, I feel like he does deserve a special shout out. He kills every scene he is in, but my absolute favorite performance in this film comes from Michael B. Jordan as Eric Killmonger, who is on the podium of greatest MCU villains. He is so amazing in this movie that I am actually still upset that Michael B. Jordan did not get an award nomination for his role as Killmonger. I feel like Disney was so focused on getting Black Panther a Best Picture nomination that they overlooked one of the best performances of 2018. And not only is Michael B. Jordan the best performance in this movie, Killmonger's also just the best character in this movie. And my favorite thing about this character is that his goals make sense. He's not really a character whose goals you don't agree with. He's a character with a great motive, but poor execution. And I know that because he's the first villain to completely change the hero's perspective. Killmonger is what inspires T'Challa to stand in front of the UN at the end of the movie and open up Wakanda to the rest of the world. But Killmonger also represents one of my biggest issues with this movie, and that's that this movie feels like two movies. The first half of Black Panther and the second half of Black Panther are so completely different in just about every way. The front half of this movie features Ulysses Claw, played by Andy Serkis, as the villain, and then he gets killed by Killmonger. And then the second half of this movie, if it's even half, is completely different. Different tone, different theme. It has a completely new villain, it has a completely different story. The lighting isn't even the same in the back half of this movie. And it annoys me that Black Panther's two biggest villains get killed off in the first movie. It makes me wonder who's going to be the villains for the rest of this franchise. I think it's pretty obvious Namor is going to be an antagonist of some sort in the second movie, but who's going to be the main villain? And then if there's a third Black Panther, who's going to be the villain in that? I feel like they killed all their Black Panther. I don't know enough about Black Panther comics to know if he has any other villains, but I've always known Claw and Killmonger are Black Panther's biggest enemies. Killmonger should have been the only villain in this one, and Claw should have been the villain in the sequel, not both. Now, this movie is blessed not just with a great hero and a great villain, but with amazing supporting cast. Okoye is a fantastic character. Do I think she needs her own show like she's getting? No, but I think she's a great character. Shuri is a gem character, and Nakia is cool. And I think something I love about all three, because most of the supporting cast in this movie is female, something I love about these three characters in particular is that they are really powerful and really independent women, but The movie doesn't force them down your throat like, say, Captain Marvel does, or Avengers Endgame did. This movie does its female characters very well. Ryan Coogler isn't trying to shove these characters down your throat and say, hey, look at all these female characters, they're badass. No, he's just saying, look at these characters, aren't they badass? Yes, Ryan. Yes, they are. Now, to talk about the full story of this movie, I have to go back to Killmonger, because really, this is Killmonger's movie. So, Killmonger is T'Challa's nephew and wants to exercise his birthright as both King and Black Panther, despite not being a direct descendant of the King. So here's the backstory. When Killmonger was a kid, his brother N'Jobu was selling vibranium to Ulysses Klaue. Now T'Challa's father, T'Chaka, who was the King and Black Panther at the time, went to have a chat with his little brother, and little did N'Jobu know that T'Chaka's friend Zuri, played by Forrest Whitaker, was undercover for Wakanda and was watching what N'Jobu was doing. Now T'Chaka told N'Jobu to return to Wakanda to be charged for his crimes, but then out of rage, N'Jobu killed Zuri. Ooh. Now, T'Chaka saved Zuri and killed his own brother. Now it's worth noting, Zuri and T'Chaka, not related at all. Then, they left and returned to Wakanda, leaving the kid behind, so when N'Jadaka went back to his room, he found his father dead on the ground, with panther claws in his chest. Now here's the one issue with this plot twist. The prologue ends with T'Chaka returning to Wakanda, and it leaves there. We don't see N'Jadaka go back up to the room. So we don't learn the full story until like the halfway mark of the movie, after T'Challa sees the ring on Killmonger's neck, and only then does Zuri reveal all the information. They should have just put the entire flashback in the prologue of the movie, present the audience with everything, and keep us wondering what exactly it all means. And then, when we learn that Killmonger was that kid, it's the final piece of the puzzle, instead of leaving us no information, because it's supposed to be a really cool twist. It's like a mystery not giving you any hints as to who the killer might be until the killer is revealed. It doesn't feel like a good payoff, because we didn't know any of the info before that point. Then Killmonger kicks T'Challa's ass, becomes king of Wakanda, and starts initiating his grand plan to send weapons and tech to all these other countries so they can fight back. It's a very good motive, but he executes it in the wrong way, and that's why after he dies, T'Challa kind of peacefully reveals Wakanda to the world instead of going for the violent route. And I'm very interested to see how this idea of Wakanda being opened up is explored in the sequel, because if they don't really explore it, that would be really dumb. Another issue with this movie is that T'Challa fights for the throne not one, not two, but 3 times in the same movie. With that said, I do think the Warrior Falls fights are pretty cool, and I like how in the one with Killmonger, T'Challa uses both a offensive weapon and a shield, whereas Killmonger goes for just 2 offensive weapons. Another thing I really like is M'Baku's story in this movie, who in the comics is Man-Ape, but they don't call him Man-Ape in the movies, they just call him M'Baku. Because T'Challa spared him at the fight, so when M'Baku found T'Challa, he kept T'Challa alive as sort of repaying him. I like that touch. It gives a lot of depth to someone who seemed like he was going to be a one-off character in like 1 or 2 scenes and then be gone. Let's talk about the final fight for a second, because this is probably the most negatively talked about part of this movie, and that's because it sucks. It is pretty terrible. This movie has 2 very good acts, and then the third one is terrible. The first thing it does wrong is that this is supposed to be the epic battle for the future of Wakanda, and I swear there's only 12 people fighting for the future of Wakanda. Like, you would think you would have citizens taking up arms, and it would be this huge, massive war, but no, it's Black Panther, the Dora Milaje, which is like 20 people, and then the Border Tribe, which is also not that big. And they're just fighting in a very small field. Second of all, the rhinos look bad. And that brings me to the worst thing in this movie, the CGI. Well, worst thing in the third act. I feel like the CGI in the first two acts isn't bad. That's the funny thing. Is the CGI is solid up until the fight for Wakanda. I don't even want to call it a battle. I should call it a tussle for... I'm going to start calling it the tussle for Wakanda, and we're sticking with that. It's funny that pretty much the entire back half base... I'm pretty sure Thor Ragnarok, this movie, Infinity War and Endgame, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Captain Marvel were all in production at the same time, and the only one that has terrible CGI is Black Panther. Like, is that because Infinity War was coming up and they needed everyone working on Infinity War? I want to say it is, but also Captain Marvel came out a month before Endgame, and the CGI in Captain Marvel's good. I don't know. I don't know. And I'm not exaggerating in any way. When I say the CGI is terrible, I really mean that it is terrible. The final fight between Killmonger and T'Challa is absolutely atrocious. I can't even accurately describe how awful it looks. They look like cartoons, but not good cartoons. Like, they look so obviously fake in the same year where Thanos looked real. They both feel weightless. Like, just the moves they do in this fight, just they feel like they weigh absolutely nothing. The movie's great, but this fight is just from a much worse movie. The CG in this can go in with Green Lantern's CG. And I really wish the trailer didn't show Killmonger's Black Panther suit, because imagine how cool of a reveal this would have been if we didn't see it coming.
You are not fit to be a king!
Come on.
But once you get past all of that nonsense, you get to the best scene in the movie being the death of Killmonger. It's so perfect. The context behind it is great. The dialogue is great. And as with the rest of the movie, the performances are top notch. I could do a whole video just on this scene and why it's great, but I'm not going to. Killmonger's dad promised him he would show him a Wakandan sunset. Killmonger's dad obviously can't do that. So T'Challa after he stabs Killmonger, he brings him to the cliffside underneath the giant Black Panther statue so Killmonger can watch the sunset before he dies. And right before he pulls the knife out, he just drops this line.
Just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships, because they knew death was better than bondage.
The ending of this movie's great, but I'm not a fan of the fact the actual ending of the movie is a post-credits scene. They thought the scene of T'Challa and Shuri on the basketball court in Oakland at the end was a better ending, so they shifted the UN scene, which was originally the ending, to the post-credits scene of the movie. But I think you can still have that without taking away from that basketball court scene. Because it's just weird that such a relevant piece of info is a post-credit scene. Like, I know the post-credit scenes always set up tease what's to come, but the beauty of most of the post-credit scenes is that the story of the movie is still complete by the time the post-credit scene happens. But in this movie, it's not complete. There literally is more movie after the credits. It's almost like an intermission. There's another movie that does that too, but I'll talk about that when I hit 500 subs. Black Panther's a great movie. It's no wonder that it became the absolute behemoth that it did. It has some of the best performances in a modern day comic film and a very good main storyline, but I'm not going to sit here and act like it's perfect. I feel like there's a lot of people who are afraid to talk about things Black Panther does wrong, but it's a movie. It has flaws. I'm going to address those flaws. I'm going to give Black Panther a B+. Black Panther Wakanda Forever comes out this year, so that's going to be interesting because it's having a lot of production issues, a lot of controversies surrounding that movie, so really interested. Like, I wouldn't say I'm excited. I'm excited for Doctor Strange. I'm excited for Thor. I'm interested in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. It's going to be interesting to see how Ryan Coogler does it. But the dude has a good track record with making movies, so I trust that he can pull it off. So we'll see how it goes. There you go, guys. That's my review of Black Panther. What did you think of the movie as well as my review? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, leave a like on this video, subscribe, click on the bell icon to receive all notifications from the MCU HQ. That's going to be it. Have a great day, guys.